Hello, everybody. Welcome. Okay, episode 18.
I know, right?
Real life positivity.
It's been a little minute.
High five.
We're doing good though. We're so excited to be back.
We are back, and it's been almost a year since we started these podcasts.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, we were looking back. We were Zooming it, and now we're in person together, which feels so good.
I know.
But it does bring back like all those feelings from those first times of all the unknowns and new variables that we were dealing with.
Yeah, when you think about what we've learned in the last year as people, as communities, as just as a world, it's pretty incredible.
As a people,
what we were feeling a year ago.
Look at us.
Look at us.
I can't help it. Just want to sing. I'm still standing.
No kidding. No kidding.
I love it.
Well, and I think so. Today's topic is really going to kind of tie into all those feelings and thoughts we've been having about that reflection, and really just our what for today is to talk about the importance of culture. And,
absolutely.
And our why for that is it's happening, whether
it's
we
going down,
are intentional about it or
That's
not.
Exactly right. So just making it a priority. And understanding it and understanding our role and the role of our culture and how we fit into that and all the things. So that's what we're gonna unpack today.
So today's title, You Cannot Not Do Culture. We got a little bold and made that the title and topic of the first live conference that we had done in a year for administrators. And so we did that this spring, and it was amazing. It was amazing to be with stellar humans who also care very much about culture and who are making it a priority, who are navigating the real examples of trying times.
Absolutely. And one of our main questions as we were encouraging people to visit with us and spend time in our session was, how you created your culture in 2019, did that impact your 2020?
Yeah. And how did it? Because the answer is yes. Yes, it did.
Yes.
And the thing that's interesting about it is we can look at it from a cultural perspective, and I think that's our mission of I Am Noticed, right? To focus on creating more sustainable, positive culture. So it makes sense for us to have the conversation around culture, but every single time we have the conversation, whether it's just the two of us or with a room of people, or hopefully even today with you, it's about how are you doing? How are we individually impacting the culture? And so it's not only you cannot not do culture, but you cannot not do you.
That's right. And culture, I think in this conversation today, as you're engaging and taking it in, that could be self-care. That could be your family, your school, your coworkers, all the things. It's just kind of an overarching term that we're using as far as culture.
Yeah. So the way, the norm, the essence of the group of people you're thinking of when you say, how is their culture? How is the culture? How's the culture at your school?
Yeah.
How is the culture in your home? How is the culture in your workplace? It's the essence of it. It's the part that's really hard to define, and you know it. You know when it's good, and you know when it's bad.
And you don't always I think I want to just sometimes when it's going really smooth, you don't even
absolutely
know. It's just a feeling.
Oh yeah. I think that's true of a lot of things. I don't know. Silly example, but what comes to mind is a few years ago, I started running a lot, and then I got plantar fasciitis. And so, ouch. And I was in a boot, and it was bad. And
so you really don't feel your feet unless
never. But I can't even tell you, since having that experience and healing and learning how to take care of myself better, there really are days where when I'm thinking about what I'm grateful for, I'll think I'm so grateful that I have healthy feet, because it was such a big part of my life when it wasn't going well.
Yeah.
So I think culture's similar. Like if things are just cruising along and people are getting along and the mission is the focus and people are feeling loved and supported and achieving, it's good.
It's good. Easy sailing.
And when it's not, And when the climate, which we're going to talk about here in just a little bit, outside of a culture, when the world or the global climate is not good, and we start to like kind of hold on and white knuckle it, then we're like, okay. And we're always saying the reason that I Am Noticed is considered a proactive approach is it's really hard to build a boat when you're drowning.
Yeah, so I was even like going when I was like easy sailing when it's going good, and then it reminded me of like your word picture. You cannot build a boat if you're drowning, and it can feel like that, and it can happen so quick. Like, and I think that's just true of life. You could be on the open ocean and it's gorgeous, and then a storm rolls in. You just got to be ready. So that's why I love that you said that. It's like so proactive. We believe in these tools that we teach and we encourage. We use them ourselves. We've had storms roll in just like you guys. And so the more we can create those practices and habits of goodness and taking care of ourselves and understanding how we fit into all the elements of all around us, it just makes us better humans. Not perfection here. Let's just make sure we emphasize that, because there are some days I weather a storm easier and better than other days. And I know that's true for you too. So
having spent so much time in the education space, I think it would be false advertising to say that we have any clients who have just had a perfect year this year. I mean, that would be naive and stupid. And I mean, it's just,
really any year. I feel like there's just,
great point.
I mean, we had a principal say one time, like, okay, what was it? Maybe like a dozen kids that were just struggling. She was the assistant principal. So it was just like her role to work with the families and make sure these kids were okay. And we were in a meeting with her and she kind of sat back and she was like, but I have 485 kids that are doing okay. Doing great. And perspective there.
Absolutely. And so I think we when we did this conference, You Cannot Not Do Culture, we used some of our schools that did make positive culture a priority in 2019 as examples for how they handled 2021. Because in all reality, those schools were set up to not have to build boats, invent ways to bring in that positivity. It was already in place. And there's so many schools out there that are doing that. And so for those of you who hear that, I hope you can kind of hear this, even though it's not personal to you. I hope you could feel noticed if you are in any capacity impacting the lives of other humans and you are intentional about holding that space for positivity. And you can let us notice you for just a second and say, you may not feel it, but it made a big impact. And if you could just kind of reflect on, that was probably different because we were proactive about that. So some of the things that came out of that time, this last year for those schools that were proactive, were that they were in a place for us to pop in and do a quick hit of professional development. To refocus on the why and to facilitate really important conversations about how they were going to choose to handle things and who they were going to choose to be for themselves and how they were going to be there for each other without us starting at scratch zero.
For sure.
That was a major thing. The other thing was kids being involved. Schools that had peer model programs were able to really give their kids some ways
and tools to support and help lift them up so then they could help model that. For sure.
That was a big difference.
I think it's important to note that even within that, you still have so many variables of some people are heavy in a storm. Everybody has a story and some people are doing pretty good. It's always a reminder of the story there behind the person.
So when the world goes crazy, let's just say, and then you're trying to figure out what to do, and it seems like you need to solve the big picture. I think there's a tendency to think, well, who really cares what my I ams are today? Because I mean, the world needs to be fixed. It would be almost selfish of me to worry about my I ams. No?
I don't like that.
Yeah.
We always have to take time for that.
Why?
Well, because I feel like it's important that you get yourself set and in a really solid space.
Mhm.
So the more you can practice like pouring into yourself and noticing the goodness in yourself, then you're more likely to have the mindset, the peace of mind, the energy, the attitude of all the things to tackle that
Mm,
big thing and then to tackle the little things as they come along.
yeah.
But if you don't take time to get yourself set, I don't think you're going to be as productive and as strong and as a high person of excellence
Yeah.
as you could be.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to not do that because we get busy and all the things can get in the way of just those. And we're not talking about like, I need to spend a whole day and write 1,000 things about myself that I love. I mean, I think these can be quick tools that you can use.
So without that practice, I think it's, especially if the world around us is negative, it's really easy to start thinking like that,
For sure.
thinking that more negative. And then I think one thing that we have really put our finger on in the last bit of time is that connection between what happens when people are confident and how it affects the culture, whether or not the culture can become confident or not. And I think a lot of that has to do with confident people can show up and share their creativity, their problem solving. And when we think of creativity, think of art, but it's
totally
a way of thinking and
thinking outside of the box. And we've said this before on here, and I loved one thing that's been so evident for me during COVID and this pandemic is people's creativity.
Yeah.
I have loved that. I have really loved to see how we can do new things and still get creative. And I love that. And
so if somebody is brave enough to show up and say, hey, what if we did this a different way? If they're not in a confident culture, it's so easy to see that be shut down and shut down harshly. And there be unkind word, and it kind of creates a space where it's stuck, hard to move forward.
Yeah, and I think there's lots of layers there. I know that you and I have such great synergy, and we live at a level that we both resonate with. And so we have our individual confidence, and then we have that together. So I think it's really cool to think about. It can be cool and very challenging. Who are you surrounding yourself with? We have cultures of people that we have to be with no matter what, due to your career or circumstances. But like, who are you spending time with, and do they lift you up? Are you resonating with them? Can you practice that creativity freely? Like, I think that seems really important right now.
Yeah.
Like getting picky about and choosy about your time, how you're spending your time, who you're surrounding yourself with. And I say it can be challenging because you might have some people in your life that if you really dissect that and look at it, you may be like, I'm not sure.
Well, I think there is, when you look at the
I don't think we meant to go here.
Yeah.
I feel like it's important.
I'm trying to make sure
culture.
I don't want to just shoot from like, well, let's just chat about that, which is what we tell you we're doing, right? We're just having this conversation.
You know, sometimes we don't know who's out there. Things come, it may sound a little wacky, but things come to us, and that just came to me, and it feels really important. And we look at individual confidence and cultural confidence.
Rather than responding to that, will you say it again just a little bit, or say what your next thought is about it?
Yeah, I think it is. I think my point to bringing it up for whoever's there, or even sometimes it's for you and I, like we say things and we feel things. I think it's just being intentional and choosy about your actions, who you are, not to jump to like a call to action, but in who you're surrounding yourself with.
Yeah.
And my hope is that you feel that alignment and you feel good around those people, because I think maybe the creativity thing prompted that for me, because if you're around somebody who is maybe hypercritical or is like kind of discouraging that creativity, I think that could be really hard.
Absolutely.
So I just think maybe it's just a nice gesture to you that I appreciate your willingness to let me be creative, and I hope you feel that's reciprocated.
Yeah.
So I just think that's super important. Again, whether it's a it's a family dynamic, your school culture, whatever. You can relate this whole conversation however you need to in your world.
Yeah.
So that's my point.
I like that.
I hope
think
that
no
brings it up in a tight little bow.
I get it. And I think that's why, from a leadership perspective, it's important to guide a culture.
Sure.
And to be more than guide, like to be intentional about it.
Yeah.
Because if I do all the work, all the tools, if I am really intentional, but I put myself in an environment all the time, that does not resonate with that. One thing I know for sure from my personal experience is that gets exhausting.
Absolutely.
So it's not even really for me a matter of judgment. Like, I know my way is the right way. It's just that it's hard and gets tiring to try to be counter to the flow.
Yeah.
And so I do like what you're saying. And I think from a leadership perspective, then when we see an administrator say, hey, this is the culture we want to create here, and this is the social norm, and people can get on board with that, then there's a flow.
Sure.
And then I think then when students and families get in that flow, that's why we've always said it's students, staff, and families.
Right. That creates
so I do think there's that relationship between who you choose to be around makes sense there. And I was trying to make sure I heard you right, and I was tying it in because going back to the tool of confidence, and that tool of confidence, if you've been a part of I Am Notice workshops, it gets built from those little practices. That's why I ask about how you're saying your I Ams. That tool of confidence, when you think about it, then if I am confident and I'm with some people who are choosing to be less than confident, my response to them is different.
And no judgment.
No judgment. Just my response is different.
Stuff.
I can run it through that filter of, ooh, is this good for me? Is this good for us?
Yeah.
And I don't have to pass judgment on that person. I can just shift.
Because it could change the next day.
Absolutely.
And then you might even be in a space the next day.
Absolutely.
Where you're not your most confident self. So you definitely want to provide that grace.
Yes. So, but if I know I'm not in a place of confidence and I'm going into an environment where there is not cultural confidence, I'm going to believe what that culture tells me about me because I'm not solid in me.
Totally. And that's just so normal. I mean, that's so human.
Yeah.
Humanist.
So if you think about it, and there's literally, I want you to try to believe me, people who are listening. I am not imagining a single school, a single administrator. I'm not putting a face to this idea. But if you imagine a school that has not made culture a priority, or did not going into, in 2019, going into the pandemic, and then the world told them that the sky was falling.
Wow.
That culture couldn't stand solid and say, this is who we are. That culture by default becomes what the world says it is. It's just not, it just blows in that storm. And man, the world, I mean, that's my perception, I guess, but I don't think there's too many people that disagree. The world has told us how bad it is for a year.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. So, when you think about how those schools who have made it a priority have done that, what would you say? I don't know how to set this question up exactly, but what I'm wondering is your perspective on how have they navigated like real life positivity? How have they navigated that there's hard and stayed true to creating positive culture?
I think it really is that. It's being real and honest with yourself and the people around you, and having we heard one administrator say it's the beginning, buckets full of grace, and just knowing that you don't have to be perfect, good communication, but just keeping things in perspective and staying solid, and then having that same kind of philosophy throughout the culture.
Yeah.
But I do think the cultures we have seen still be able to thrive as they're being real and honest, but choosing to notice the goodness.
Yeah. And safe for people to be creative and solve problems and handle things the way that makes sense in the moment.
For sure. It's definitely not a Pollyanna
Yeah.
thing.
Oh my
to
gosh.
be
I think
positive.
it's, yeah, I think it's so, I mean, like, I don't know if I say this or not, but like, I mean, if you've done a virtual PD with us this year, you probably know it wasn't all sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had, I'm not trying to be negative, but I mean, real life, we've had people in tears and we've had people want to get off of the calls. And we've had, I mean, there's no part of us that thinks going into those facilitations, like, oh, let's just go shoot them up with some positivity.
Yeah.
We want to hold that space
Absolutely.
and give people the space to be positive. But I think one thing that's cool about noticing, if you really do it, with that intention of really, I see you, I hear you, you matter to me, is that no matter what perspective somebody's coming from, you're seeing them. And so somebody, I mean, I'm just thinking through like those virtual PDs, you've got, you know, an educator who's getting ready to retire, talking to an educator who's their first year on the job during a pandemic, you know, and so it's like the perspectives of each individual person, really honoring that has made a very different conversation than if you're just like reporting the news and everybody's showing up to a staff meeting and you're like, this is what we got to get through.
Absolutely.
Actually seeing people has been priceless.
And I think to be able to be your true self and to know that it's okay if you have good days and hard days and all the things, I mean, that's really defines for me noticing and belonging.
Yeah.
When you have a culture where you feel okay and safe to be you, I mean, that's what we all want, right? We just want, we want to feel safe. We want to feel like we matter, and we do. So I do think that starts with you knowing that for yourself and not being dependent on other people to fuel you. But man, when you can just feel that for yourself and then you can exude that and radiate that, rise, radiate, repeat right behind us, is just such a, it can be such a simple and complex philosophy, but it truly, truly works.
And then it comes back to you. And so
Absolutely.
though you don't need it because you're self-sustaining, you get it.
That's right.
And then that's that flourishing.
Right.
And I think what you just described is what we need as adults. It's what kids need. I mean, it's just, it goes across the board. Everybody needs that. And we survive without it. We just don't thrive.
We thrive. And I think that's just what you want. And I think this is a great like time to transition to like our call to action.
Yeah,
you know, like
absolutely.
How can we get there? So some of the amazing humans we've been working with recently, I mean, we're hearing like the rest of this year is crash landing. I mean, there's so many continued variables with the climate that are impacting the culture that leaders are dealing with, and whoever's listening, I'm sure we're all impacted with everything. So how can we balance our everyday world and our highs and our lows and all the variables with being proactive and prioritizing what we need to take care of ourselves and for our culture? So how do we do that?
I think the first thing we do is say, hey, we're going to talk about that. We're going to make that, and then we're going to think about that. We're going to be intentional about that. Just owning it. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Jinx and stereo.
For sure, people.
So no, I really do. I think I think that's a very easy answer, maybe an obvious, but at the same time, like there is justifiable reasons why we would be too busy to do that. Yeah. And yet, if we don't be intentional, if we're not intentional today, the culture that we have in the future is going to happen. And so do we want to carve out the time and space to figure out what we want that to look like?
I mean, there's so many layers there.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about even just in my own life, right, how I lay that on. Like there's days where I'm like, I need a shower.
Yeah.
It's like you just get up and go and go and go. Like, hold on, I've got to slow down and take care of myself.
So that's interesting though.
Think about the future.
Because that is the shower thing. The shower thing though is one of those things that a year ago or pre-pandemic would have sounded differently. But people got used to, you know, keeping their pajama bottoms on the bottom,
totally.
At least. And so it's like perspective changes.
Hey, and by the way, I do shower.
Yes, she does.
Daily.
You smell lovely. You smell like a rose. Okay. Actually, that little spray stuff. He smells good. Anyway, okay. But no, I do think that perspective changes. Whether or not, how often we shower, how often we get ready, whether we're leaving our house or not, whether we're doing school online or virtually, whether we're, all the things
Mhm.
change perspective, but what doesn't change is whether or not I know I can handle,
Yes.
whether or not I feel like a solid contributing human,
So true.
whether or not I feel loved and supported and safe and all the things. So when we say you cannot not do culture, that's it. And I
Yeah.
think that call to action is make it a priority
Mhm.
to be intentional about how you want your interior culture
Yes.
and
Ooh.
your community culture
Like
to
that.
look.
Never heard you say that.
Interior culture.
Interior culture. What's going on?
Interior
in
and exterior culture. Yeah, there's two things there.
Absolutely.
So I do think that's the call to action is to have that conversation first with yourself and then with other people. And obviously we'd love to have that conversation with anybody who would love to have it.
We are so here.
We love that.
We really do. And I think what's I am proud of how we take time with the people that we work with to really genuinely notice what good is working and what's happening. I feel like that's been a gift.
Totally.
That we can do that. And we want to make sure we're not always just like, what's broken? How can we fix it?
You know how you said sometimes things just come to you and you say you put them out there, and we didn't talk about this either. I know we're right, and I don't want to mess up your flow, but that thing that you just said, like that's the gift we give people when we sit down to talk to them. Yeah. So we've literally had people say, can you come hang out with us? Because we just feel better when we talk to you. And I think that really, yes, I really think that does boil down to, instead of just going right to what do we need to fix,
you bet,
we're like, what can we notice good here? And the thing that popped in my head when you said it is, I want to make sure and highlight that for everyone who has any people in their life. Mm-hmm. So if you have kids in your life, it inspired me just in that one thought to think, I need to make sure I'm doing that with my kids. Because right now we've been in task mode. There's a lot going on. We've been dealing with like, what do we need to do?
And I would just say to that, like, I feel like we are back into, I call it our vintage life, like our old school life, like it's really
busy.
It is. And it's back and things are opening back up and it's amazing and glorious. But we had all practiced for about a year, kind of a slower pace, doing things in a new way and practicing such resilience in that. Yeah. So I hear you. I just wanted to add to that. Like that's another layer within that. And so like, I think it's an overarching observation that impacts all that we're talking about.
So if we're going to have a conversation, so if you reach out to us and you say, hey, can we talk about our culture for next year? The first thing we're going to do is say, tell us what's working.
What's going good?
What's going good? What are you really proud of?
So you're going to do that with your
kids. So I'm going to do that with my people in my house for sure. And then, from that conversation, I would love to say the next step is this, but you don't know it until you ask the question and you listen. And that's discovery.
And we have programming, we have parts and pieces. We know what works great. We've seen it. And then we are flexible and we've gotten more creative than ever too. So thanks, COVID.
That's right. That's right. One of the things that I'm really excited about is the bringing together of people who want to talk about these good ideas, these big ideas.
We're here. So, we're ready.
Yeah. I think we got to a place maybe in the last year where we were craving those conversations more. Mm-hmm. And out of that craving started asking questions like, well, would people want to have conversations about this? Would people benefit professionally from that? And so doing master labs and doing leadership retreats and really leaning into, we have a formula for discovery that is really important because we come at it from this confident place and we expect others will too. Absolutely. And that it's really just about, what do you notice about yourself that's good? What do you notice about your culture that's good? What's hard? What would you like to do? And that simple equation, when people actually care, is pretty huge.
It's huge. So if you want to have that conversation with us, like individually, we have some master lab options, like you mentioned, or if you're feeling this for your school, obviously that's our sweet space. We would love to be working with you all. So thank you for listening. This was a lovely conversation.
This was very nice chat. I like talking with you. Thank you.
We appreciate you guys so much. And follow us on Twitter, do all the things, engage, tell us what you think, reach out. We love you guys.
We do.
If you're listening, you can't see my dance moves, but
they're good.
They're good.
Yeah, she got good dance moves.
Or just go on YouTube and watch the dance moves. There you go.
There you go.
All right. Any last minute thoughts?
No.
We're going to sign off. Thank you guys for being you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.